Welcome, Lacey, everyone. Lacey led the most recent IPO for Klaviyo. And today, after market, is her first earnings report. So there could be someone not more relevant to who's just been through everything that we're going to talk about today. So come on in.
Panel, 3 weeks ago, but
Sure, you'll do just fine. Why don't you start by giving a quick overview of the company, how you made it there, and a little bit of your role throughout the entire process?
yeah. So I am the head of PR at Klaviyo. So as Ken just said, we went public in September. We were founded about 12 years ago with the mission of powering smarter digital relationships. So the idea there is that we were built as a database. So everything you knew about your consumers and your customers, size, where they live, when they order, et cetera, is stored in our platform. And we partner with Shopify and many, many other integrations to help gather all that data. And then on top of that, we built an email and SMS platform to help you utilize that data to build those relationships that you want. So I joined Klaviyo in 2021, a month before we announced our Series D. And I had come from another tech company, Drift, which I think every tech company leads you in with the promise of an IPO, and that one didn't work out. They are actually acquired about 3 months after I left, and then came to Klaviyo, and it actually happened. And prior to that, I was at PR agencies.
Great. There were 3 IPOs, all trying to test the market when you went out. Arm had its story, Instacart, and you. I watched it all unfold, and at first glance, you had the cleanest story of all of them. Instacart's valuation was already wiped down 2/3. Arm had been waiting to do this for a long time. They were below their value. You guys were holding strong. That didn't mean you were going to have an easy IPO. One of the trickier things to navigate is your business's reliance on Shopify. And I know you had a strategy in place. I think we all know at every point in the IPO process, strategies evolve based on if you're getting drilled and what type of questions you're getting. So maybe walk us through a little bit of the challenge and how you guys handled that and led up to the IPO.
Yeah. So what's interesting about us is that we were very much a product-led company for the first, I'd say, 10 years. So when I was brought on, it was the first time we really had a full marketing team. So we had to think about kind of how could we take advantage of this moment? Because as you said, it is a branding moment. And we didn't have that. No one knew. I mean, half of the battle was having people pronounce our name correctly, to the point where we literally we adjusted our press release to have the phonetic spelling. And one of the proudest moments was that everyone pronounced it correctly day of. But so one of the things we thought about from a Shopify perspective to start is leading it back. Anytime we knew we were going to be asked about that, we wanted to bring it back to us. So yes, they're a great partner. They invested in us about a year ago, but they're just one of many partners. And so really leaning on that integration story. And hey, if we have the data from Shopify, we also have the data from WooCommerce. We have it from Gorgeous. We have it from all these different places. So really leaning it back to like the strength of our business is because of the relationships and the ecosystems that we have. So keep building it back to the more data we have, the more successful you can be. And then I think the Arm and Instacart thing, it was fascinating. I mean, we had sort of a war room when our S1 flipped, and we were just waiting because we knew Instacart was probably going to go out. And we had a feeling, I don't think anyone from Instacart is in here, but we had a feeling that their comms team was not pleased that we went out about 2 hours before them. So by the time they were out, the story had already been written for them. And I think that we were really fortunate in that aspect. And so but you're right, we had to wait to see how it unfolded. And I think where we were lucky is Arm was really different. It was the SoftBank story. It had gotten a lot of buzz before. Instacart had the sort of, they've delayed this process many, many times story. And to your point, we were really the purest one. And so we just kind of leaned on that. And then our ultimate goal was just making sure, sort of back to your point earlier, in the background, that everything we wanted to be said was communicated and factually correct in what was happening. That was not quite in our control.
Yeah. You never know what they're going to latch on to and what comes, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me. I talked about you're either in the inner circle or you're out. Every company does it different. Sometimes it's just a small team of 4, IR, CFO, CEO, and head of comms. Talk to us a little bit about what was the inner circle team? How did you operate, even leading up to today? How did you earn a seat at the table? And bring me through earnings and what that process, your first earnings, has been like.
Yeah, it's interesting. We did not have a CMO until a month before we went public. So it kind of gave me the opportunity to wedge my way in here. I see Sam actually from Glass and Marker. We use them for our roadshow video, and I just decided that I should probably be in charge of doing that RFP because there was no one else really to do it. And because we basically had, I think, 40 people under the tent at first, everyone kind of just needed to pitch in different ways. And I think because of that, I was able to kind of wedge my way in before other people were under the tent. And then I could then give that work away once people were in it. So my inner circle, it was very similar to what you said. Head of IR, legal, and the CFO is basically chief of staff. And so we the code name for the IPO was Powderhorn. I actually don't know why. But so we had a Slack channel, PH Dream Team. And I think it was the most active Slack channel I've ever had. And so we would meet weekly. And because I wasn't in every single meeting, they would update me. I would update them. I think the one thing that I learned though, is as close as we were and as great as our relationship was and continues to be, making sure that what you want communicated to other stakeholders is communicated. I think that I learned after I sent sort of here's what to expect on listing day, here's what other schedules look like, et cetera. And I thought some of that had been being communicated, and I didn't want to overwhelm the CFO, the CEO, but I think that what I missed is I should have been really clear of how much do they know and how much they want to know. Back to your education piece. And then from earnings, I will say, I think that we're probably going to have a post-mortem after this one. I know I'll get into this, but we practice, but I think, there are different things board members are now weighing in on press releases, which they haven't really done before. And every word counts. And just thinking about what are the themes we want to share, what do we want to be known for? At the beginning of my press release, I had how long we'd been in business. And someone made a good point of like, well, why does that matter? Let's go right into the results. And it was a great point. I thought we were establishing credibility, but so just a lot more cooks in the kitchen and sort of navigating what that looks like. And I think also just being open to feedback, because there's going to be a lot, and also being willing to your point, fight the battles you need to fight and then give in when you need to give in.
Great. When we were chatting, you said something to me that was very poignant, and I'm going to set you up for this. Leading up to the IPO, your execs are pulled in 20 different directions. They're on a roadshow for 7 to 10 days, and then you show up and you have to start doing media interviews the morning of. How did you get them out of roadshow mindset, where you're selling to investors, back into company messaging and excitement to go on CNBC and do 20 plus media interviews?
It was fewer than that, but okay. It was supposed to be 17, it was 15. I will say, our founder's an engineer, which I'm sure most tech companies are familiar with. And he's not, this type of thing is not what he wants to be doing. But I think that what was really helpful is that repetition from the roadshow. So by the time we got there, we got it. And then the one thing that we just had to tweak for him is speak in sound bites. So Ken and I were actually talking, and I think execs are different. Some want to be told what to say. Others want to just go off. I think ours falls a little bit more of what's going to resonate most. Tell me you're the expert and I will do it. And probably change a few words. But I think that was, so I was saying to Ken that we had a messaging grid, and he goes, no, don't call it a messaging grid. soundbite grid. And so I've rebranded it with the company. But that's what it was. It's just sort of, and making them feel comfortable and really thinking, what we tried to think of was, what's the story? What's the customer you can mention? And is there a stat that we could use? So just always bringing it back. Yeah.
Great. I have one or two more questions. We have plenty of time. I'm going to open it up to questions. So start thinking about your questions if you have any. The audience today, we have a handful of agency owners. Did you have agency support? And if yes, where did they offer the most value? And what advice do you have for agency owners that are here today?
Yeah, we used, I still call them Sard Verbinnen. They're now FGS Global. They were invaluable. I actually emailed them. I keep trying to give them more work because I just think that they really understand us. One of the things, to your point, it's a weird black box. Like, you don't know. I mean, I was really fortunate that I have Brianna here from Excel, one of our investors, and they helped set me up with other PR people who had taken a company public. And I needed that. But then there are so many little nuances. They really walked me through every single step, even things like, we had so many leaks, which was actually a whole other thing, but they helped us with the leak plan. I think that the best part was they helped us stay a step ahead of what the execs were going to ask. So before they even asked about a leak plan, we had one to them. And I think just being that step ahead and showing that we have the confidence and we know what we're doing, I think just gives them the confidence there. Also on listing day, I mean, they've done this a million times. So, and listing day is crazy. I mean, we had 17 original interviews. We had, you're going up, you're going down. We were at the New York Stock Exchange. You're moving them, you're calling them. And just the way, just having them sort of as an extension and helping make the execs feel calm was really helpful. The last thing I'll say is that we did a very quick, 15-minute media training with the execs, with just like pelting them with the hard questions, which was helpful because Sarah Eisen definitely on CNBC was not pulling punches. And that, back to the confidence piece, just helped Ed and AB, our founders, feel like, okay, like these people know. And then the best part was we're watching in the screen and they asked every single question we knew they would.
Yep. Now, you make it sound like it was somewhat of a peaceful day. How many people did you bring to the exchange with you on listing day?
300.
300 people at the exchange. It's managing a circus, and you have a job to do. Your founders are distracted. There's 300 employees rooting, cheering. You make it seem easy.
No, it was terrifying. I luckily didn't have to deal with half the logistics or most of them. I think the three things that we did that were really helpful was, number one, to your point, I was fortunate to be very involved in the exchange selection process. So I did a visit to NASDAQ, visit to NYSE, and then once we chose New York Stock Exchange, I did 2 more visits. So I knew exactly where we were going to go. I could show people, this is the way, this is how. We had photos to make people sort of understand where they were going. And we had great relationships with them by that point. The other piece too was there's a point when you walk into the New York Stock Exchange that's just kind of, it's really just internal. And we decided to use that as like a walk down memory lane for everyone. So it felt like, well, everything is really, it's hard to make it feel like it's all for the employees, but it's a really big moment. And so we use that as an example. And then I will say there were some people, so we had people inside and outside. So it was a pretty quick, but we basically also just we knew exactly where we were going and we had 2 rooms that we were going back and forth. So we just shuttled everyone up there and let the rest take care of itself.
Okay. One last question from me and then we'll turn it over to you. Every company does this differently, but you were telling me you as a team started thinking like a public company pretty early on. So when it happened, it wasn't so jarring. Walk us through what that means, when you did it, what type of things did you do leading up to it?
Yeah. So when I interviewed in 2021, the current chief people officer in my interview asked me what the 5 steps I would do to take a company public if we started doing it that day would be, which thank God I just had a conversation with someone else and written it down verbatim, because I just basically read it from my notes and I'm not sure any of those are actually accurate anymore. But we did. We had a really concerted effort. We've done. We did a year of mock earnings, and we had our board on asking questions. Each time we would sort of take detailed notes and sort of what worked, what didn't work. We did that, and we did it really starting probably a year in advance. I think we tried to do it before, but it is a really hard muscle, particularly when I think most startups now are so much about transparency. That was a real struggle for us. And I think even for our founders, where we were like, I don't understand why I can't share this anymore. But it's tough when you have to explain to 1,500 people what MNPI is. And you just realize too, you're so in it. We had someone ask, we were talking about insider trading, and we had someone ask, well, so if I work at Apple and I work on the iPhone and I know it's coming out and I trade on that, that's insider trading. And so you just realize like, oh, wow, it is a long time of education. So I think starting a year and just helping people understand why. And then once our S1 flipped, we then started doing much more concerted teach-ins. So this is what equity is. This is what insider trading is. This is what a quiet period is. But I'm still answering questions daily of like, can I say this? So just kind of trying to document that as you go along and bringing people along with you. But I would say at least a year in advance, just start thinking about that and what that would look like.
So your first earnings today is really your 5th earnings.
Yeah. I might have been able to reuse part of a quote from another one.
Beautiful. I love it.